Hi, everyone. Welcome to another conversation here about interprofessional practice. And in this one, we're going to talk about collaboration. And somehow I've zipped right to the second slide, but it's okay. The first one was just the title slide that said collaboration. So welcome, and let's have a conversation. And again, I'm going to try to keep it short if I can for you. But there's a couple of key points we really want to talk about. Collaboration is central to effective interprofessional practice. So what we're going to do in the next 20 minutes to half hour, let's cross our fingers, I'm good with the time, is describe 9 really central elements that support collaboration. We're going to talk about how we know whether we're collaborating well or not. And then we're going to just at the end wrap up with talking a little bit about what are the barriers to collaboration that we know of, and what are real important strategies for successful collaboration. So what do we know about collaboration in general? How do we define it? And there, you can read this in your textbook, but really it's a process that requires that relationships and the interactions between health professionals are effective. And it's really important that we come back to this idea of whether or not you perceive yourself to be a member of a team, you are essentially required to collaborate. And so often people think that they're not central to the team, they're peripheral, they're not really a member of that team, but all of us need to collaborate. And that really encompasses all of those key elements, the who's collaborating, the how are we collaborating, and the what are we effectively doing. All of those central to collaboration, but also we've talked about this central to IPP, and so go back to that organizing framework and those various dimensions, the who, the how, and what, essential. So collaboration, not a new concept at all in healthcare. We've been talking about this for many years. We talked about teamwork originally. We've moved to other concepts, but collaboration and working effectively together is a critical component to being able to get the job done. And again, coming back to those dimensions, the relationship dimension, the process dimension, and the task dimension, all rely on effective collaboration. Collaborations lead to better outcomes for patients, for practitioners, for institutions, and for the healthcare system. And they lead to new innovations. So there's an example here, biomusic. I'm going to let you just look that up if you want to. I'm never going to test you on it. But lots of new innovations come about because people come with different perspectives and different ideas. And when we're open to each other, not just listening to each other's ideas, but coming together with all that we have and working towards a common goal, we can really make a difference and new things come into the world. So let's talk for a moment about problem-focused processes. So in the realm of when we've got problem-focused processes, it's really critical as we're collaborating that members of the team come together to solve a problem or an issue. And there's a belief that the combined efforts of the team will result in a better solution. So if you're working on a shift, you've got a challenging situation with a patient or a family, bringing the whole team together is likely to give you a better outcome, better insights, better strategies moving forward. Than if you, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that. Than if you were just working on it on your own, trying to figure it out on your own. And we'll talk about this a little bit further. Cooperation, another really important component of this. So cooperation is an action or a process of professionals coming from a variety of disciplines working together, again, on a common objective. Doesn't that sound familiar? We're coming together and working on a common objective. But it requires that we consciously put our energy into it, and it often requires a lot of hard work. Sometimes it's very easy to think about even your group postings here. Sometimes don't you think it would be easier just to do it on your own? I'm just the kind of person who likes to do things on my own and get them done, and I've got my own timelines and I can just figure it out. I don't have to make concessions to other people and negotiate with other people, but you end up with a better product, a better outcome when we're able to cooperate with other people. It's an essential human work skill, and it takes a lot of energy and a lot of finesse. And as we go through our careers, we become better and better at working through some of the challenges of cooperation. And it's really important that we don't give up. When we're cooperating, we don't concede. We don't just give up our viewpoints or our perspectives, but we're open. We come with this stance of openness to others' perspectives. And it really requires that we trust other people, that the other members of the team are valuable to us and that we trust them, and that we're able to engage over time. So it doesn't just happen in one meeting. We don't just get together, we've got a half-hour meeting, we come to cooperation and we move on. Cooperation is essentially relational in that it takes time. You build a relationship, you build trust, and you move forward effectively together. Interdependence. Now, we're not talking about independence here, but interdependence. And that's where professionals are relying on each other to accomplish goals. And individual professional goals in a situation are really important. So my nursing goals in a particular situation for a patient or a family, a group in the community are important. But there are also team goals that extend beyond my own individual professional role. And so in interdependence, different professionals rely on each other in supporting the accomplishment of common goals. And again, this really relies on trust. Remember, we talked about trust just a minute ago. It requires that we value each other, we come to understand each other's perspectives, each other's roles, and we value each other, and we trust each other within the team, and we really recognize the significance of what the individual and the role that they're filling brings to the team. Shared ownership of goals. So important that we all believe we are working towards a common goal. And so that belief really underlies this idea that we all have a common responsibility or a mutual responsibility for all aspects of the work that goes towards meeting the goal, not just for what I believe I want to take on, but for all aspects of the work. And that everyone wants to own the goal, or everyone wants to really feel that this is what they need to accomplish, that the team, and they as an active member of the team want to accomplish. And they feel kind of a personal stake or a professional stake in ensuring that it's met. So it's not just that it's written down and everybody knows what it is and we all just pretend that it's important, but I just go about my business as usual. I actually am invested in making sure that that common goal is met. And facilitators for that shared ownership of a goal would be things like making sure we all have a clear focus, right? What is the goal and why does it matter? And making sure that that goal really is a common one. It's not just one member of the team and we're all going along. Somebody's very influential and so we feel we have to go along with their ideas. But that it does represent everyone's view. And finally, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That there is good follow-through that is consistent with the goal, so that we follow through in our actions and in how we carry out our tasks in accomplishing it in ways that are consistent with our intended goal. We also need to have an action orientation. And in an action orientation, what we do is we really focus on all of our activities on movement towards the goal. So we're always moving towards meeting that goal, and we're always focused on quality improvement. Right, so it's not just getting through the moment, doing what we need to in the moment, and then moving on, but we're always thinking, is this goal aligned with quality improvement principles, right? So we're making things better because there's no point in working so hard to keep things the same, unless they're perfect, and typically they're not. We also want to focus on what's possible. And that sometimes is hard when a situation is difficult and we would like the ideal. What we really need to say is what is possible in the situation, and what are traditional solutions, and what are solutions that can take us beyond that. And so it's really important that we keep all of that in mind. This is really critical for us in nursing, non-hierarchical relationships. So everyone has an equal say. Right? We all have an equal say on that team when we're collaborating, and there's no power differential. Now, many of us have experienced that power differential where certain people, and I'm not a doctor basher, but often within the team, it's the physician who seems to have a lot of power, who comes in, who writes their orders, who may direct what's going to happen. Now, hopefully in the best of all settings, that's not the case, but it's hard to really move beyond some of those power differentials that have been historically embedded within healthcare. But in collaboration, there are not hierarchical relationships. Everyone is equal. And that's fundamentally based on a respect for each other and a real recognition that we have unique skills as health professionals, but also overlapping roles, right? And we talked about that in roles and responsibilities. that results in all members of the team feeling really empowered and feeling that they have a lot to contribute. But it also, at the same time, as I feel empowered and feel I have a lot to contribute, it means then I have to step up into that role. Then I have to bring the goods. I have to really do all that I can do, and really sometimes then act within my full scope, be creative, be collaborative, form good relationships, and bring all that I can to the situation to bring about best outcomes. And in that case, another key indicator here, a key focus, is that there needs to be shared accountability and responsibility. And in that, what we mean is that all team members have a shared sense of responsibility or accountability for these three critical things: the plan of action. So we all feel a shared sense of responsibility for the plan that we're undertaking. We all feel a shared sense of responsibility for the outcomes that are going to result from this. So we've come together, we've collaborated on a plan, we've decided that we're going to meet this plan, and also we're going to focus on those outcomes. Finally, we have a shared sense of accountability and responsibility for the decisions that we as a team make. And that's really critical. So again, think about your groups, even with your small group posting. Did you have a shared sense of responsibility for the actions that were going to lead to your posting? And did you have a shared sense of accountability and responsibility for your ultimate posting, or did you feel it all just rested with the leader, which isn't fair because that's not collaboration? And finally, for the decisions, let's say the interim deadlines that you set for each other, the decisions about how you were going to post or what you were going to post, things like that. That's a little tiny example. In our practice, the stakes are much higher because it's about people's lives and people's dignity. So that idea that we have a shared accountability and a shared responsibility is an important one. It's also important that we recognize that the responsibility of each professional within the team to assess all the aspects of the plan and what you're doing and the outcomes, and to determine what action needs to be taken. So we don't just leave the responsibility and the accountability to a leader to undertake that decision making, and then all of the responsibility falls to that person, but rather all of us, every member of the team in leadership or followership roles, and in particular in collaboration where there's much less likely to be a formal leader, has that same responsibility to be analyzing the situation, looking at all of the aspects of it, and making determinations about what action should be taken. And then we collaborate in moving through with that. Oh, communication, so essential. We'll talk about this more in the course, but it's really important that we focus on all of the aspects of communication. So there's lots of possible foci or intended outcomes when we're involved in communication. So simple transmission of information. I tell you something, you tell me something. You're communicating what time a medication is due, when your patient last got up, or whether your patient ate. Things like that, just simple things. It can be an exchange of ideas where we're pondering something, we're analyzing something, and we're exchanging ideas. And that's a much more thoughtful communication because it's not just a basic fact, but it's actually my analysis, right? So it's something that I have worked through. And it can be sometimes a negotiation, what I want, what you want, what is best, where should we go from here? And that involves a higher level of communication. It's important in communication. It's great to agree. Oh, it's great when you're on a team where everybody's in agreement and you all have the same direction in mind. It's equally important when you disagree, because remember, the goal when you're working in interprofessional practice is that you come to the best possible decisions, and that leads to the best possible outcomes. And that's the real beauty of interprofessional practice, that through this both melding of the mind, both agreeing and disagreeing, being that sticky wheel. What is that? I don't know what that expression is, but being the person who sort of stops things and says, I don't think that's the direction we need to go in, and this is why. You can really help the team to ponder something deeply and to really see from a different perspective. And then again, this the final point here, that listening is as important as speaking. That for all of us, it's important to take on the role of speaking our mind and be the person who may clarify ideas, the person who may come up with a strategy, like verbalize the strategy, the person who may even state the problem. But also important to really be a good listener, listening to the other person, listening to their perspective, processing what that other person, the other members of the team are saying and how they're saying it is really important, because that can help. And even then to interject with clarification points, so helpful. Flexibility and adaptability is so important in successful collaboration. And in flexibility and adaptability, one of the important things that we focus on is making concessions, both in our thinking and our action. And so it's not just conceding in a way that I have bad feelings, but okay, fine, you win. But it's actually conceding and saying, okay, I see your point. And that's a sort of a concession in thinking. A concession in action would be just to get to the point where you say, okay, I think I'm going to do it that way, because you see the merit in a different approach. And so it's that flexibility, that being willingness to do things in a different way. When we get stuck in our thinking and in our way of doing things, we really can, that can really lead to problems for our patients and in our own practice, because it's like we've got blinders on and we can't see beyond them. And there may be really important other considerations that we're not taking into account. And there may be other ways of doing things that we don't, that we haven't really thought about. Flexibility and adaptability really requires that we're able to compromise. And I think for most of us as nurses, we have that innate skill of being able to compromise, because that's what we do. We compromise with our patients. We compromise within the healthcare team, but all members of the team need to compromise. So it's not that I'm the, nursing is always going to compromise and everybody else is going to get their way. The entire team works collaboratively through this approach in which we make concessions and we compromise, because our goal is to get to the best possible outcome. I don't need to have my objective met. I need to have the best possible patient outcomes achieved. And that means that we compromise within a team about how that can happen. And ultimately what that requires is that we make decisions together, that we're all in the game, that we're all focusing together on what is the best way to do something. And in particular, where we have that professional responsibilities overlapping, so many of us, many of the different professions have scopes that overlap with each other, it's really important that we come to some good consensus about how we make those decisions together. So just an example here, a colleague used this example, so I can't say it's new to me, but that idea of effective collaboration, how do you work effectively together? How do you make a team that is actually able to work together, even though everyone is different, everyone has different perspectives, everyone might even sometimes at the outset have different goals, but how does effective collaboration work, and how do you know if you're collaborating effectively? So here are some questions to really consider. Number one, was the team collaborating, and how do you know if it was collaborating? You want to go through again those dimensions of practice, look at the relationship dimension, look at the process dimension, look at the task dimension, consider how everybody is feeling and how they've experienced what was going on, look at your outcomes. And a couple of other questions, what went wrong? What kinds of actions, behaviors, or circumstances did you see at play in the situation? So as you reflect on what happened, what did you see, and how did that lead to things not working well? And what went right? It's really important as you reflect on situations of collaboration to consider, again, what kinds of actions, behaviors, and circumstances did you see that were really helpful in that collaboration taking place? So here we go. How do we know if we're collaborating well? Number one, is there respect amongst team members? A really good checkbox. Is there respect amongst team members? Next, is there role clarity? Does everyone know their own role and have a good understanding of the roles of the other team members? Was effective conflict management in place? So were tempers flaring and people jostling each other metaphorically? Or was conflict management held? Remember, conflict is not something we avoid. We're comfortable with conflict. But did we have mechanisms in place to respond to that when it occurred? Was the collective focus of the team on meeting patient goals? Did we stay focused on that, not on meeting our own needs? And did we develop a good shared accountability for both the plans, the decisions, and the outcomes? We're almost at the end here. A couple of slides. I'm going to talk about barriers to collaboration here, and then we're going to talk about how we can effectively collaborate, so facilitators. So some of the barriers to collaboration are a little bit outside of ourselves as individuals. A professional climate. Now, we're part of contributing to this, but sometimes we're in professional climates that are just set up in such a way, professional setting, the way people behave in the professional setting, that are set up in such a way that collaboration is not easy and it's not fostered. And and that can be really challenging if you're working in an environment like that. You want to work to create an environment where collaboration is the norm, not where you're having to break through with other people to try to find a way to collaborate. That territorial professional stance. Remember, we've talked about professionals being educated in silos and that very different approach to practice when they only want to hold on to their professional knowledge and their professional role, not recognizing that overlap that many of us have, and how when we come and bring all our perspectives together, how it's a very different experience for patients and for professionals. Loss of focus. So one of the big barriers to collaboration is when we lose our focus and are not able to really continue to focus. Remember, our goal is always best possible patient outcomes. So when we lose our key awareness of what we are working towards, it's really easy for collaboration to break down. Poor communication. We talked a little bit about communication and how essential it is. So poor communication can really impact our ability to collaborate. And then time. Collaboration requires time. A friend of mine who worked in mental health, actually the co-author of the text who worked in mental health, used to say, so every day we would have the team meeting and we would begin with blah, blah, blah. And he would be talking about the time that it would take as they worked in mental health to create this collaborative environment. And I would always respond by saying, I work in the emergency department. We don't get together and have a team meeting and begin this. It is, shift starts and on you go. Time is really essential for collaboration, and finding what that time looks like, whether it is a long meeting or whether it is 20 seconds or 30 seconds in a moment, to make sure that the team has all the same objectives and we're working towards the same ultimate goal, and we're all responsible or feeling a sense of accountability for the decisions, the group decisions that we're making, is really essential. So figuring out where that time comes from and what it looks like in your own setting is really important. And then finally, some strategies for success. Preparing for collaboration. So learning about collaboration, mentally preparing for collaboration, looking at how things are working in your practice area and how that can improve is really important. Making sure you create the right conditions for collaboration. So if we set it up, I just gave that example where my colleague Charles talked about how in mental health collaboration worked. If I tried to bring that into the emergency setting, it's destined to fail because I have patients who need care, and there would just be nurses who are frustrated with a meeting where people are talking, but I have really critical care that I have to provide. So finding the right conditions and making those right conditions for collaboration to occur. And another important consideration is how much support is there within the organization, or even if you take it down a little bit, within your unit, that cultural, that climate on your unit or within your team structure or your organizational structure. So important to consider. So how do you create the right conditions for effective collaboration to happen within that setting? Planning ahead, making sure that collaboration isn't just on the fly, but we actually build in time and space and thoughtfulness for that collaboration, and then actually evaluating it. And this is something that we often do informally or in our own minds, but we need to go through a little bit more of a formal or at least public process where we discuss this. So formative evaluation, so partway through, is this working? Am I having a sense that everybody is feeling they're part of the decision making? We are actively working in relationship and trusting each other. Everyone feels that they have a role within this collaboration, things like that, as it's unfolding. And then summative evaluation. And in summative evaluation, that's where you actually get to say, not only was the collaboration, the collaborative processes effective, but did we meet our ultimate goal? Were we successful in meeting the goal that we had stated at the beginning? Did we stay on topic? Did we have clarity about that goal? And did we stay focused on it? Or did we waver, or did the collaboration fall apart? All kinds of things. So the strategies for success, the final one is that really important one, bringing in some evaluation, typically informal, but sometimes depending on how you're bringing in a collaborative process, it might be a little bit more formal. And again, not just waiting to the end to evaluate, but even midway through the process of bringing in a collaborative model, you would want to do some formative evaluation where you ask some of those questions and see how you're working together and working towards meeting your goals. That is it for this one. And I think I sort of kept to a reasonable time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I am really looking forward to your group postings that it will come up next week as well. So I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to carrying on our conversation very soon.